Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome to Tag Tuesday. Today I'm going to be doing the birth year book tag. I was tagged by Greg over at another Bibliophile Reads. Please go check out Greg's channel. He was kind enough to tag me and I appreciate that. This tag was created by Olly over the channel CriminOlly, which is a new channel to me and I learned about through this tag in this video, which is a great way to learn about new channels and a great way to do tags. This is an original tag he created. There was a similar tag to this back in the past, which I did, but this one seems a little different, and I don't remember that one. And heck, who cares? You know, it's kind of fun to get to talk about yourself, and nothing an old man like me loves more than nostalgia. I am 54 years old. I was born in 1967, so I'll turn 55 this year. So 1967 would be my birth year. So I'm going to work through the prompts, which I have on my phone, and answers, which I've written on a note card sticky note thing. So here we go. Question number 1, which actually has 3 parts. Have you read any books published in the year you were born? Yes. If so, what's your favorite and why? 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez was published in 1967. I believe that was originally the publication date of that book in Spanish. Another book that was published that year is The Master and Margarita by Bibliophile, which is also excellent. But I think 100 Years of Solitude is my favorite, and then Master and Margarita maybe my second favorite from that year. It's a pretty good year for books. Question 2 says, have you read any books published in the year you turned 18? And the answer to that question is yes. There were actually quite a lot of books published in the year I turned 18, which was 1985. A very good year, the year also which I graduated from high school. So I thought of 3 books that are really high on my list. Ironically, Love in the Time of Cholera, another book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, was published in 1985. And Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy was published in 1985, one of the books I consider to be truly great. But my favorite book published in 1985 was Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove, which is just a classic in every way, an epic classic in every way a classic can be epic. And if you haven't read Lonesome Dove, you really should. So my favorite is Lonesome Dove. Then question 3, of the last 10 books you read, how many were published before you were born? Only one. The Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, which is a slave narrative, as we call them here in the United States, was published back in the 1840s or 50s. I read that. I thought it was really great, but all the other 9 books have been published since my birth. The question that follows that is, what were they? So I told you that. And did you prefer the old or the newer books? So I would say no, I didn't prefer the old or the newer books. I've been kind of lucky and been on a roll and read a lot of really good books lately. Question 4, what's your favorite movie from your birth year and why? So there are a lot of good movies also from my birth year. If I'm just looking at the list of movies, let's see. There's Cool Hand Luke came out in 1967, and that's probably my favorite movie from that year. Not necessarily because I think it's maybe the best movie that came out, but it just has so many lines in it. What we have here is a failure to communicate, delivered by Strother Martin after beating Paul Newman down. Paul Newman saying he could eat 50 eggs, and then the egg eating contest. Things I say all the time around here, like taking it off here, boss, which is something that the convicts in the chain gang say when they're taking off their shirt while they're working or something like that. There's just a lot of great lines and images from Cool Hand Luke. But also that year, let's see, The Graduate came out that year, which does have Catherine Ross, which, really puts stuff there high up there on my list, despite Dustin Hoffman. And then also Bonnie and Clyde came out that year. So some good movies in 1967. But of those, I'd say Cool Hand Luke's my favorite for the lines I mentioned, also just because Paul Newman, one of my favorite actors of all time. Then question 5, what's your favorite movie from the year you turned 18 and why? I only have one of these, and that movie, and it came out in 1985, which is my favorite, is The Sure Thing, starring John Cusack and directed by Rob Reiner. Just one of those movies which just was perfectly timed for me. In the 26 random questions tag, David had asked if we emulated anybody, and I confessed that for a while I tried to emulate John Cusack in that movie, at least in the way I dressed. It is a movie essentially about a young man traveling from the East Coast to California to have sex because it's been a long time since he had sex, and its setup is that it's kind of the typical 80s sex romp movie, and there were a lot of those during that time period, but it turned out to be far more sensitive and far better than that. It's just a great movie, and I wanted to beat John Cusack for a short period of time, and then, as I mentioned before, he blocked me on Twitter not that long ago. So those are the answers to the 5 original questions, I think. I think I've covered all of them. I was a little disappointed, though, that the tag did not have music on it. So I thought I'd just mention a couple of albums that came out in the year I was born, and then a couple of albums that came out in the year I turned 18, which was 1985. So there were a lot of good albums that came out in 1967. You may know that here in the United States we refer to that as the Summer of Love. There was a Lou Reed album that came out in 1967 whose name I've just completely forgotten. There was Sgt. Pepper's. That album came out in 67. I think also Magical Mystery Tour came out in 67. But the albums I want to talk about just briefly here, and I'll leave links to the songs down below, which is what I do on Saturday Hodgepodge. The album I want to talk about, primary album I want to talk about, is Jimi Hendrix Experience album, Are You Experienced? And I'll leave a link to that song down below. And also another album his came out, I think it's called Axis Broken as Love or something like that, which I think only came out under that title in 1967 in England. But Little Wing, which is a classic, beautiful guitar-driven song, is on that album, so I wanted to mention that as well. As far as albums that came out in the year 1985, being 18 in 1985 means I listened to a lot of music, and music was really important to me back in the day. I've said many times on this channel that my musical taste is really kind of, I think, broad, not particularly deep. So basically what it comes down to is I like what I like, and I don't oftentimes, think too deeply or get into a whole lot of genre music. But 2 albums that I wanted to mention, it came out in 1985, which have some songs that I really like. One is Revolution by The Cult, which has She Sells Sanctuary is on there, probably their most famous song, and then Rain also on that album. And then the Jesus and Mary Chain also had an album come out in 1985 called Psycho Candy. That album came out in 1985, and it has the song Just Like Honey, and then The Hardest Walk is also on that album. 2 songs that from the Jesus and Mary Chain I liked. Anyway, there you go. There's the birth of your book tag. We're supposed to tag 5 people for every year every decade that we've been alive. This tag has made the rounds, and since I added music to it, I'm going to tag Mark Nash. I don't think he's done it, but I want to tag him because whenever he talks about music, I always find I'm reminded of songs or bands that I knew about, or look into new bands, and so I'm just going to tag you, Mark, just for the heck of it. Anyway, there you go. There's my version of the birth of your book tag. Thanks again to Greg for tagging me, and to Olly for creating the cool tag. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.